afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Gives me great pleasure to invite the esteemed panelists for this very, very interesting session. Before we begin the panel discussion, I would like to thank Sujata, Bibor, and the ITP media team for giving me the opportunity to moderate this panel discussion. And what we're going to do over the next 1 hour is to debate on this whole topic about the smart factory, how AI and IoT is really helping building the smart factories of tomorrow, and also what is the future of automation. And we have a very diverse panel. We have representatives from the user side. We have someone who provides solutions to the manufacturing industry. And we also have someone who's working very closely with the MSMEs who represent the backbone of India's economy. I just want to take a few minutes to set the context before we get into the panel discussion. Now, when you talk about how the current factory of today is, if you just look at many of the large MSME factories, those who are in the MSME segment, and even those manufacturers, even among the large players who are not really advanced in terms of the Industry 4.0 journey, what we're very clearly seeing is many of those factories are still manually operated, lot of paper still being used. Automation is very, very less. They're not connected. From a serviceability perspective, they do have challenges, not very, very flexible in terms of how the lines operate within that factory. The future paradigm is what can be done to really make sure that they progress to building a smart factory. And when you talk about a smart factory, you're talking about a factory which is connected, where you're pretty much connecting every asset in that factory to a network. It could be machines, it could be material handling equipment. It becomes a lot more easy to service machines in that factory, and thanks to technology today like IoT, which will allow you to start with condition-based maintenance and progress to predictive maintenance at some point in time in the future. Talking about factories which are a lot more flexible, where you can use the same lines for different kinds of products. You're talking about modular factories. The question is, how are you going to use these technologies to really make sure that you progress from being a factory which is isolated to truly being a smart factory, right? And so while we talk about all these technologies that are really going to help in terms of making these true smart factories, there are other dimensions that we also wish to cover during the discussion. We definitely want to cover, while we're using IoT as a sensory layer to extract data from all these machines, how is analytics and AI, how is that really helping? How is data really being used as a key driver to make decisions? We definitely want to talk about automation because, as I mentioned, the level of automation in most factories is still very, very low. And we really need to make sure that we are able to automate a lot more, fusing a lot more AI, making it a lot more intelligent. We definitely want to cover a little bit about sustainability. We had the previous discussion talking about sustainability, but what we want to do is, at a very high level, talk about how technology is playing a big part in sustainability, whether you talk about optimizing energy, waste, water, and so on. If time permits, we would like to talk about some of the challenges that arise, especially when you're trying to transition from an isolated factory to a smart factory. We want to also talk about maybe cybersecurity, if time permits, because that's one of the big barriers today for manufacturers to really adopt I4.0 technologies. So I just wanted to set this context before we begin the panel, and I want to first start by getting Surbhi Gupta from Birla Optus into the discussion. And Surbhi, thank you so much for taking time to join us. Now you represent a paint company, and Birla, a late entrance into the paint segment, but you're definitely going to give the Asian Paints and the others a run for their money, and you already started production. So Surbhi, can you share with us, not just from your current company perspective, but even the experience that you had previously, how are technologies like AI and IoT really helping in building these smart factories, Surbhi?
Thanks, Sunil, for the question. And thanks, Manufacturing Today, for having me here on the panel. I think I just want to start off, Sunil, with a very 2 lines about my organization, my company. Birla Opus, I'm not too sure if everybody has heard about it. We are a recent entrant in the paint industry. Aditya Birla Group, we come under them as a paint division, and we launched the entire business in February, this year. So it's been now 6 months of operations for us, So I think why I'm talking about this context setting, that we are a new player, So overall, all the plants that we have today, we are targeting to set up 6 manufacturing facilities, out of which 3 are already up and running. And we are all greenfield implementation. So to answer your question, I will bring that context into the answer. So when we were looking at designing how to set up our factories, so some of the things which we already had in our kitty was the best practices that we need to do. So I think digitalization in manufacturing is something now everybody is aware of, and that is something which we have to take forward and be very keen about driving it. So what is the step that we did? We designed our plants keeping the data architecture in mind. So one of the biggest things, and that is where in my previous organizations where the plants have been set up for decades and decades, if you do not have the right data architecture, while you put the IoT sensors, how to get that data from the sensor and get it into, let's say, a cloud setup, and then be able to work on the top of that data for any kind of use cases which we want to do, be it on predictive maintenance, quality. All of that is something which we had at the back of our minds when we designed our factories itself. So my request would be any greenfield implementations, or even to that extent some brownfield implementations which are happening, they should keep the data architecture at the heart of designing their plant operations. So that is point number one. The second point where we are really gaining an overall advantage is trying to get to a connected operations. So today, if you talk about the, while we are setting up the IoT in the plants, the IT and the IoT integration, that becomes a biggest challenge for somewhere in some of the existing implementations. That is where at Birla Opus we ensured that we already have that integration as one of the first things that we start off with. So we have our ERP systems, we have our PLM systems, we have our MES, DCS systems which have been set up. They are set up in a fully integrated ecosystem. So then we ensure that if we have to make any change, it's very much fast. Yeah. So that is where, right from designing the architecture of capturing the data, and now we are in the process of setting up industry cloud. So all the data from my manufacturing facilities, we are taking into the cloud, and that will help us drive not just reporting on plant operations, but also improving effectivity and productivity and cost efficiency measures.
Right. Thanks, Surbhi. I think 2 points which I picked up. So one is you talked about the importance of the data architecture that is going to be the heart of any operation from a smart perspective. The second thing is you talked about the OT-IT integration. I think that's still a challenge for many of the brownfield plants because a lot of the legacy infra, trying to connect them to new technology is always going to be a challenge. And for you, because you're building these greenfield, already started, from your standpoint, it is far more easier now to start building this connected plant straight away, right? So thanks for sharing that. Let me get Ashish. And Ashish from NBC. And Ashish, I think it's fair to say that NBC is, when you talk about adoption of technologies, you have very, very mature in terms of adoption. And the fact that you almost came close to getting the Lighthouse Factory status clearly speaks volumes to the fact that you have done a lot of work in that space. So can you share for the audience, how are you seeing these technologies really creating impact for NBC bearings, Ashish?
And thanks to ITP Media, Sujata, Vibhor. Thank you for this opportunity and having me here. So let me start with what we have done at NBC Bearings. I represent NBC Bearings, which is the largest bearing manufacturer in India by volume. And there is a good possibility that the vehicle that you drive today runs on those bearings. And everything that rotates has a bearing component in it. So it's like the Intel inside. We have the rotation. Wherever there is a rotation, there is bearings. At NBC Bearings, unlike Birla Opus, we had a brownfield challenge. So the legacy factory was 70 plus years old, and the automation there were nearly 2 decade to 3 decade old. So the first hurdle or the challenge that we had to overcome was to extract data from those machines. As it is with any Industry 4.0 or IoT implementation, you need to first get to the source of data. And that is what we did. So when we tried to extract data, that was the first challenge. And One, because the controllers, the machines were old, different generations and different make and model. The standardization wasn't there by then. Having crossed that first step, and that we did in a, say, pilot mode, 2 lines, 20 machines, and so on, we started off. But today, we have 1,000 plus machines on the IoT platform when we cracked it. And we have, out of 5, 3 plants live on the IoT platform. What we are seeing as a benefit is there is a huge change in the way of working on the shop floor. And the shop floor managers used to work on reactive data. So the shift in charges used to work on reactive data. I'm sure that must be the case with many of the manufacturing organizations. But today, it has moved to proactive way of working. That's one of the most recent changes that we have observed, and this results in, well, definitely the KPIs are there to measure. And what we have seen is as an impact in the overall plant OEE, the overall equipment efficiency, that it has moved from 5 to 15% anything, because we were already operating at a very high base. So from there, moving up to this level in itself is a very significant achievement. Through only the first level visibility of data, well, it is now represented to shift in charges, to plant heads in a meaningful form so that the decision making can be instant. So that's where we are today.
Great. I think that's a great 5 to 15%. That's significant. Ashish, thanks. Let me get Vishwesh into the discussion. And Vishwesh, you represent TCS, and as the head of connected plants, you have a good insight in terms of how some of these global players, the large global manufacturers, how their adoption has been when it comes to Industry 4.0. So can you give us some global perspective in terms of how some of these larger manufacturers in the western parts or even in Asia, how has their adoption been? And any learnings from there that you think can apply to some of the Indian manufacturers, Vishwesh?
Sure. Thanks, Sunil. First of all, it's a privilege to be here and being with all of you. Globally, as we know that Industry 4.0 adoption is increasing, I think India is at an advantage to some extent because a lot of new investments, new manufacturing is coming up, as Surbhi talked of, which gives you some advantage because you can prepare yourself to get ready faster. I see 2 trends globally. One is some of the manufacturers are implementing foundation. When I say foundation, because they have been into this business for a very long time, and a lot of these processes have been manual, so they are thinking of implementing MES, making it digitized. At the same time, they're also building their own IIoT platforms. At the same time, I also see the other extreme where some of our customers are extremely in advanced stages of using technology, wherein when the parts come in based on the inspection which is done at the source, they are actually able to predict what will be an assembled device quality would be. Or as you start building things at different stages, you have got your inspection points. So from those inspection points, what could be my final output and what kind of matching pair I should do such that my results are far better. We also seen, how the technology they're using, which is combination of things. You can have an audio sensor, you could have a vibration sensor. So multiple inputs leading you to more accurate prediction of things. For example, if you have a compressor bay, maybe first you want to analyze your overall noise level, and based on the anomalies detected in that noise level, can you then go on to a specific compressor which is making an issue? Some customers have gone into a very complex process digital twin into cement manufacturing, for example, where in a furnace you got certain issues where the material deposition reduces the overall yield. So how do you build a process digital twin using data itself and increase your overall throughput? What I also seen is, because now we work with so many, we have developed a lot of architectures which are now ready. So we are taking our customers out of mind of, POC, because there's a lot of mindset. Let's do POC, let's conduct 20 machines, as you said, right? And that's okay when you're doing it in the initial phases. But then when you think of from 20 to 1000, your platform has to be that robust. And that experience of having done helps customers do things much faster now. So we take customers away from that thinking that let's do one POC, let's connect one line, instead of can you really, because we already have architectures, we already have implemented this type of solutions across, we give those examples to them and say, we can go big bang, you don't have to be slow. As you said rightly, visibility itself solves so many problems. You could go from visibility from 5 to 15%, I totally agree about it. And then technology like process asset digital twin can further increase exponentially your output, your two things, right? One, you save cost because your waste goes down, and because you produce, your overall productivity has increased, your top line increases. So the business benefits are double-edged in that particular sense. So that's what I would say.
Right. Thanks, Visheshan. You talked about proof of concept. Before the event began, I was having a chat with Bibor, and I was just telling him that, see, we've been talking about proof of concepts, then we moved to proof of value. I think it's high time now we move to proof of scale. No, we really have to scale. If really have to take Indian manufacturing to the next level, they have to scale, no question about that, right? So thank you for bringing that perspective. Let me get Samir into the discussion. And Samir, you represent an organization which manufactures medical equipment, plus you also provide industrial automation solutions to manufacturers. So can you give a sense in terms of how do you see the level of automation amongst manufacturers in India, Samir, your viewpoint on that?
Yeah, thank you, Sunil. And of course, good afternoon to all the members here. And thank you, Manufacturing Today, for giving me an opportunity to be here. I represent the automation part of Omron. Omron is a Japanese company. And for us, the automation portfolio is a very wide one that includes everything from relays to robotics. And we provide automation solutions, specifically IIoT solutions, and AI-enabled solutions for manufacturing industry, for discrete manufacturing industry, right? So I think from that perspective, what we are really seeing is a very high level of adoption coming into the Indian sector. And as other panelists, including Surbhi and others have mentioned, I think India has a natural advantage today because a lot of our assets are being built now. So we can leapfrog and we can take advantage of the latest technologies available in especially automation technologies, to actually build systems or build manufacturing units which are more efficient, more sustainable, and a better quality producing. Because at the end of the day, I think we need to understand, and I'm sure all of us agree on this, that we can't be building for India. We need to be built for the world. So when we are building for the world, we have to also compete with the world, which means we really have to be the best in class in terms of efficiencies, productivity, and quality. And I think the automation adoption by the Indian manufacturing industry is really, I would say, very high and at par with what we are seeing globally as well. So there is no second step there.
How are you seeing automation among the MSMEs, Samir? The manufacturing MSMEs, how do you see that?
So I think that's also picking up as well. So there is a lot of investment happening there because, again, I think everybody realizes that there are some parts of the process that cannot be done unautomated, first of all. And then there are parts of the processes where the productivity is going to really suffer or quality is going to suffer if you don't automate it. So they are not going to be compete with, other manufacturers. I mean, to give you a simple example, a very kind of a crude example, all of us buy chips, right? And there are maybe thousands of chips producers in the country. We are not talking about the organized sectors like the Lays and the Haldirams and things like that. I'm talking about the mom and pop producers. Earlier, they were packing with their hands, typically, but it was a manual operation. Now, almost everybody is using a packaging machine, and that is based on automation because they cannot churn out the speeds. It's a very, very, low-level example, but, that just gives you a sense of where the MSME industry is heading.
Right. And talking of MSME industry, I thought good time to get Amit into the discussion because Amit, you worked with NASSCOM before, you had a center of excellence, still have it in Ahmedabad, you work very closely with the MSME industry, and even in your current company that you founded, you work a lot with the MSMEs. So how are you seeing the MSMEs today, especially the manufacturers? How are they adopting Industry 4.0? What are you seeing from the market today, Amit?
Thanks, Sunil, and thanks Manufacturing Today for giving me the opportunity to speak here. I think some great discussions have already happened from a large industry's point of view. Now, one thing basically I say is anything which a large company does, everything can be used by the MSMEs also. It's only certain way the customization has to happen, but there is nothing which SMEs or MSMEs cannot use. And so, like I've been to many of the forums, and say 5 years back when I used to introduce myself, I used to say manufacturing digitization is my passion. Right? So initial 25 years I had been with the large corporates, first 15 years with the large manufacturing industries with GE, RPG Group, then I spent long time, 10 years with IBM. So it became like a mix of a manufacturing plus the technology background. So I used to call myself as a manufacturing digitization. But now, of late, over the last 5 years, I'd say the SME digitization is my passion because the whole thing is thanks to NASSCOM because as Sunil said, I worked with NASSCOM for 5 years where I was heading the initiative of accelerating digitization in the SME sector of the country, and that gave me a lot of eye-opening things because I could meet with more than 2,000 manufacturers from the SME sector across the country, across different states, across sectors. I've personally visited more than 300 manufacturing plants of those SMEs, seen the things on the ground, understood their challenges, understood what really they need, and then we have worked with a lot of those SMEs on things that needs to be done. Now, I think whenever I start, one basic thing I would always start in any session is I think we all should understand a clear difference between a traditional factories and the smart factories. I think there is a lot of myths around it, which it becomes, because there is a lot of overlaps are there. So what I say is there are all traditional factories. Next level is automation factories, and then it is smart factories. There's a lot of overlap that happens between automation and digitization or the smart manufacturing plants or digital manufacturing plant. Both sometimes words are used synonymously, but these are very different. So let me kind of just differentiate for ease of help for everyone. Traditional factories is where the core manufacturing processes are automated. All the manufacturing is done by the machines only. And I'm proud to say in India, we have all the SMEs, MSMEs, whether you call, everyone is running with the machines, correct? We are not producing anything which is without the machines. Every SME, whether even if a micro SME of a 5 crore or a 10 crore company, they will have a state-of-the-art machines which is needed to produce that. So, if you think that automation, we can say that all SMEs are automated. But the real automation is basically when other than the core manufacturing process, the support process also gets automated, which means the material movement from the warehouses to the machines, from one machine to the other machine, the all operations, and then from machine finally to the delivery, those processes also gets automated. That's where we can say we are an automated factory. But even if we have everything automated, everything is moving seamlessly using the machines, still we can't say we are a smart factory because the definition of a smart factory is data-led decision making happening in a factory. The factories are integrated factory. They are not standalone factories. I'll still say that automated factories are also tend to become a standalone factories only. They are not an integrated factories. So I think the highest level of a productivity efficiency will come when it is really a smart factory. So that's basically then from a definition point of view. Now, since you asked me where SMEs basically exist today, so I'll give you my numbers based on what I said is 2,000 SMEs I have interacted. So what I have seen in the SME sector, micro SME, I'll say, which from a government definition, it is up to 250 crores and below, they forms the MSME sector. And if you go to this sector, around 30% of the companies have ERPs, 70% don't even have an ERP. That's the current state. 99% of the companies are collecting data manually. Digital data is not there. 99%. And even if the companies who are, say, collecting the data, they first collect the data manually and then put it into the ERP. But when I say that data coming directly from the machines or directly from the operators, that is still not there in this sector. When it comes to the specific applications, like we talk about AI and IoT applications, again, I'll say 1% of the companies will have it, 99% of the companies don't have it. So that's basically is the current state based on whatever numbers I have on this sector. Then when we move from the SME, basically if I call SME is the 250 crores to say 2,000 crore kind of companies. And if I give you the same numbers around that, I think 100% of the companies will have an ERP. Whether it is a SAPs of the world or whether it is Odoo or whether it is a customized ERP, 100% of the companies has an ERP. The problem is there are these ERP functionalities are there, but they are not fully used. The data is there in the ERP, but the decision making from the data which is lying there inside the ERP, it is not happening. I'll say 100% have data with them, and many companies are collecting data manually, entering into the ERP, but data is there. At the end, digital data is available. But 90% of the data is not being used, which we call it as a dark data. So I think that's the state which is like you have a gold mine with you, but sitting in a locker. So gold is there sitting in a locker. You are really not making a use of that data. And I think that's the tricks or the learnings that this sector I'm saying the companies say who have grown from MSMEs and reached to a level of a 2,000, 3,000 crore companies, they will have to learn from the global companies on how to use the data. This use of the data only will put them at a stage which they can become also a global companies, correct? So I think maybe I'll talk more about it, but that's from a current snapshot point of view.
Yeah, thanks, Samit. I think very clearly you mentioned that it's always going to be a progression, right? To move to an automated factory and then eventually to a smart factory. That distinction has to be there. And the fact that data is there but not being leveraged to take the right decision. So I think there's a lot of opportunity as well. And you mentioned one category where 70% are not having an ERP. So that presents a great opportunity for one of our sponsors, SAP here. So let me get Ganesh into the discussion. So Ganesh, you represent SFO Technologies, a leading ODM player in India. So, and you're a manufacturer as well as supplier to many in the industrial segment, right? So your views on what is this in terms of adoption of these technologies, one from your own perspective within your factory, and what are you seeing with your clients from a smart factory adoption standpoint, Ganesh?
Thanks for the question, Sunil. I too would like to thank Sujata, Vipor, and manufacturing today for giving me this opportunity, and would also want to thank each one of you for your time and patience. I work for SFO Technologies. We are the country's largest, among the country's largest ODM plus EMS companies catering to the industrial and aerospace and defense sector. My sort of observations today come from our own work. We are fairly early in how you would describe the smart factory journey, but also from peer interactions and fora such as this, where you sort of get to hear from non-industry peers as well. I'd like to sort of flip that around a little bit and give you my observations like Amit did about what I think are the top 2 or 3 things that we see becoming an impediment to a successful journey or a successful outcome on the Industry 4.0 journey. The first or the largest one that we've observed is that your implementation needs to be focused not around the technology itself, but on an outcome for the factory. And the outcome has to be between, perhaps including both in different measures for different companies, but it has to be between becoming a better manufacturer, more productive, more efficient, higher velocity, or a customer outcome in terms of visibility and responsiveness. And if those outcomes become secondary to the implementation, then it sort of becomes an extremely hard implement. The second that we have seen is where it becomes somebody's pet project, either CIO's pet project or MD's pet project. And it sort of doesn't have the kind of traction or engagement that it needs to have with practically everybody in terms of, again, like Amit said, in terms of being able to use the data that you're generating. I mean, first, collect the right data, and then second, use it in your decision making. And the third is because it's implemented often in a sort of very, with a set of advisors, companies like TCS, companies like Omron coming in and sort of helping you on this journey, it tends to become its own, create its own life and not really integrate with the company's operating mechanism. So I think this is the third one that we have seen where there is a business review and a IoT data review, and it really can't be that way where it has to sort of merge into your entire operations mechanism. And these are the three things that we've seen, of course, from our own experiences, but also from our peer exchanges. That's my response on this.
Right, Ganesh, and I just want to ask you a follow-up question. It's easier to say OT, IT integration, implementing all these great technologies, but it does bring a set of challenges in terms of how do you do this. So in your perspective, how are these challenges, how can you address these challenges, Ganesh?
No, I'm not sure I have an answer, but I must tell you that we ourselves struggle with it. The OT IT piece for us is extremely important because we have clients who have very specific requirements, especially the aerospace, healthcare, defense clients have very specific requirements, not only on security of our network, but also on data security in terms of what information we generate about their products and our process related to their products. So we struggle with it, and most of the solutions that we've come up with right now are still fairly piecemeal, not something that is widely implementable. But we struggle with the OT IT integration because much of what we are doing is brownfield. We're already a large established players. We have equipment that can generate data, but when you're talking about the entire operations technology and the IT side integration, I think biggest challenge will be cybersecurity and data security. And we've taken the approach of doing small pilots in specific customer-related areas, and hopefully we'll find a path that is something that we can leverage across the facility. But I would say, to summarize that, number one, cybersecurity, number two, data security is what we see as the biggest challenges when we integrate.
Right. Vishwesh, anything to add to what Ganesh mentioned in terms of challenges? Because you deal with a lot of these global manufacturers, so, and even in India, anything else to add in terms of the challenges?
I think what you talked of is true. Data extraction is one of the foundational challenges, and advantage of greenfield like yours is, you get an opportunity to standardize a lot of things. In fact, we have some customers where they're massive EV manufacturer, and they are setting up their factory right now. So we are helping them to standardize data blocks, which will then integrate with one MES on the IIoT platform. And this exercise has to be done upfront so that, you need to have vision for your end goal. And this end goal has to be linked to your objectives of top line and bottom line revenues. Given that, it's important, one, to have this foundation of the data architecture. Second, the OT security, and again, we do have a lot of frameworks where we analyze your control systems network, particularly in the OT area, and look at what policies you have to secure your data, and if worst case, if something happens in one zone, how do you ensure and protect the other zones? So a lot of those, and then real-time monitoring of your OT systems and OT network to ensure data security. So those are some of the things what we look at. Data extraction is definitely one big challenge, particularly in the brownfield industry, I would call out. Second is obviously a lot of things are being learned, so there is always some doubt, if I invest, would I get return or not? And that's where the philosophy of just let's do trial and then see if you could get the results. And then third challenge I see is many times you do a lot of POCs, and particularly in the global scale, many of our customers have high number of plants, 250 odd plants globally. And because AI is there, Gen AI is there, so they do a lot of POCs. But then having got good results, and because of lack of visibility and lack of commitment from top leadership, they are not able to scale this. So that's another challenge. Yeah, I've done this, I have benefit, but I'm not able to scale it because the architecture, what they chose, was not scalable. So many customers have also come to us saying that, yeah, I've done something, but I'm not able to scale. There are issues. I don't get same result everywhere, or my performance has degraded. So how do I reinvent the whole stuff? So you have to re-architect everything and redesign. So having right consultants on board is very, very key when you want to do this at scale.
Right, and getting back to Surbi, Surbi, you mentioned earlier about data architecture, and Vishesh also mentioned this, the importance of the data architecture. And I wanted to bring in another dimension to the discussion, because when you talk about data, dealing with data, you also need people with skills to manage this data, to process this data, because you obviously need clean data being fed into your AI model to get the best possible output. So how do you go about building a really good data architecture, and the importance of the human collaborating with the systems? You know, we are living in this human AI paradigm, so to speak. So your views on this, Surbi?
So again, this is, very rightly pointed out. If you look at workforce skilling, I would bring it under that particular umbrella. So what is really required in an organization, and this I talk about a bit more from my previous experience with manufacturing legacy organizations, that is where you need digital ambassadors within. So what happens is, and it was very rightly said, sometimes a lot of the, the initiatives are driven centrally. So you will identify a use case, and it takes couple of months to build that use case. Let's say it's a predictive maintenance use case. Yeah, you will build it out, then you will pilot it out in one plant, and then there is a successful output. But one thing which at least I have not seen is that you can do an exact replica of the same model and put it in another plant. Because there are going to be multiple variables there. There are multiple variables at the individual plant level. There are going to be variables about the data and the way the processes are running. So it is a bit difficult to clone everything. I think, again, at Opus, we will be a bit more in an advantageous position, because all our factories are exact clones of each other. That is how we are setting up new. But then, new, I'll not talk about new, because new is something which can always be streamlined and structured. So how to create those digital champions? Not everything can be run by a common center of excellence team, which is sitting and trying to define, let's pick up this use case on energy management, or my, wear and tear alert mechanism, etc., etc. So you will need to ensure that digital as a culture, while I think in the previous session there was on sustainability, mindset was something which was coming out. That mindset has to be there. Similarly, on digital technologies, it has to be in the behavior of your team. Because if they don't, it's a bit harsh, but if they don't upskill themselves, the workforce will become redundant. It is very clear it will become redundant, because, people keep on saying that digital is something which will take away jobs or cut down jobs. That is not true. It is asking people to reskill themselves and take up a better opportunity which it makes it available.
Right, and a great message for everyone here, that AI is not going to take away jobs. It's only going to add more jobs, perhaps. You talked about digital champion or a digital ambassador. Would that be the CDO of the organization?
So they can. So if you look at it, a digital champion is on the ground. So today, I think we have reached a stage where if I go to my plants also, they also come up with ideas that this is something which we can do. But we try to empower them that you work, we will try to build a platform structure. I think that is what was mentioned also, that we try to platform, and then the users are themselves the digital proponents who use it for multiple purposes. You cannot define each and everything sitting in one office for all plants. You can't do it. At least we have not been able to do it. I will be very happy if we can get to that model. But yeah, platforming is the way forward. We create a platform where the digital champions are sitting in the plant. They, individual plants, they take responsibility and they drive initiatives at the plant level.
All right. Thanks, Surbi. I want to get Ashish back into the discussion. And you being the CDO of the organization, you kind of have to interact with all the line of business owners, and you're also interacting with the leadership, right? So I just wanted to get your perspective in terms of the importance of the leadership to get their buy-in, their role when it comes to organizations, when it comes to setting the digital vision for the company and getting everybody aligned to it. So I just wanted your thoughts on this, Ashish.
That's 100%. You need that top commitment. And in the role that I play or similar roles that my peers play here, it's the connect from the shop floor to the top floor that we need to maintain. And very similar to what Surbi was saying, I would just add that with IT, OT convergence, and for that to be successful, we also need the business and IT convergence. Unless and until the business and IT convergence takes place, technology is not going to help the business or improve the business. The adoption is what matters, and technology is less about pure technology, it's more about people, how they adopt it or how they fail it. And coming to the point of the connect or the commitment from the top, yes, that is required, because as what Vishwesh was mentioning, many of the organizations get stuck in those pilot modes or POC modes. And this is typically the pilot purgatory.
Pilot purgatory.
Yeah. And it actually takes then the top management to push it through. And only then that, okay, somebody needs to have that conviction, that vision, that no, this is to be done. And today, if you ask me, Industry 4.0 or connected plants have to be a hygiene for the ecosystem to work. So the large companies are almost there. The tier 1s, tier 2s are also coming up, and slowly it has to percolate down to the MSMEs. They have to be brought up in the entire ecosystem. That's the demand. And with the previous panel talking about ESG and sustainability, I think the overall direction is set. So not adopting technology is not an option.
Good segue to get Amit back into discussion. And Amit, because you've interacted with so many MSMEs, and a lot of these barriers to adoption would be mindset also, right, Amit?
Yeah.
So anything else, any other barriers that you think comes in the way of MSMEs really wanting, because see, they spend crores of money buying machines. When it comes to adopting technology, they're not willing to spend those few lakhs, right? So what are those barriers which really prevent them from really adopting these technologies, Amit?
So I think, yeah, again, a very important question. So as per me, there are basically three barriers or roadblocks that SMEs, or I'll say SMEs have. First is the in-house digital capabilities. So the challenge which the SMEs face is, while in the large global companies, you will always have a CDOs and their whole internal team which will be there, who will help the organization maneuver the digital journey. In the SME sector, that liberty is not there. And since there is no internal skills which are available, when I say internal skills, basically someone who can maneuver the things around, correct? Who can plan, who can strategize, and then who can execute, correct? So that skill is not available. Even the workforce also, like whether it comes to the blue collar workers, the workforce is also not equipped or ready to kind of adopt this, correct? So that's the number one challenge that they face. Second, I will say is more from I can say it as a change management or maybe a day-to-day kind of a things. SMEs are so much engrossed themselves in their day-to-day operations that they don't even have time to think of 5 years ahead, correct? So there's always a firefighting which is going on within the SME plants. I mean, something is wrong, order needs to be executed. So since there is no big teams which are there to manage, so most of the time of the SME basically leader or the directors basically go into the managing this day-to-day operations. So the strategic thinking of transformation, change and everything, that always remains maybe in one or two presentation, but in actual it is not able to happen. Third thing is basically falling in the ROI trap. Now, you can only do the ROI when you have a capability, in-house capability which is available. If the internal skills are not there, then calculating the ROI becomes very, very difficult. See, it's like someone is doing in a school, and then you start thinking what will be my ROI of investment of whether or what investment I will do in the education, correct? You really have to first go through that journey little bit at least to really start calculating the ROI, right? So that's where I think the ROI trap needs to kind of come out. While I think a lot of people are saying POC trap also, but I'll say for SMEs, POCs are important because POCs gives SMEs certain amount of learning on the digital skills. POCs give them some level of a confidence that it will bring in the results, correct? So that to get out of the ROI trap, POC for SMEs, I advocate for POC to the SMEs. So these are the three.
POCs, paid POCs?
Even
Are they willing
paid,
to pay?
absolutely paid POCs. There is nothing like free POCs. And paid POCs doesn't cost money. It just say 2 lakhs or 5, 10 lakhs, you can do a paid POCs. Again, I mean, if you see the MSMEs, when it comes to the investment in the machines, 2 crore investment, decision taken quickly. When it comes to the 5 lakh of investment in technology, decision is not taken. And that's where I think the ROI trap, it is there. So I think that has to come out. Now, from a future point of view, I think one, on how to get over these barriers, correct? So I think that's also important for SMEs to kind of understand. There is, and everything I'll say, this is nothing different than the way the large companies did it. It is only, I think you all need someone who can customize those processes of the large companies and give it to you in a form to the SME that it gets become easily consumable, right? So I think first step is always building skilling will always be the first step. Building a digital infrastructure will always be the second step. And you talk about any large global companies, they would have gone through these steps only. And now the cost of sensors, the cost of connectivity, what it used to be 10 years back and versus now it is now, it is very, very less of at least bringing an connectivity within the plant. So building a digital infrastructure is extremely important. Third thing, basically, then it comes up is the collection of data and then bringing out an insights from that data. So report that you all study through the ERP, basically you get lot of reports and how much of value you can create out of those reports, because it is humanly impossible to get really the insights from the reports. You have to move to the dashboards. Dashboards only will give you the insights, what worked over the last 6 months, what didn't work, what challenges were there. So that usage of the data to start reviewing the dashboards, I think that is important. Right. And then comes to the solution adoption, and for that, absolutely, there has to be some way of identifying, building a roadmap has to be there. Use a lot of those concepts like design thinking. So I do design thinking for SMEs. Again, a design thinking, you go to any large corporate, you will find every large corporate has used design thinking. Now, SMEs, why they can't use the design thinking concepts? It's just 2 days sitting in a room, that's it, nothing more. There's no investment which is needed. There are people who are there to help you. So why not to use all the frameworks, tools, methodologies, techniques which the large company use? Why not SMEs also use it and then get going? So it's only, I think, maybe some of the awareness gaps which are there. Once it starts happening, the movement will happen.
Yeah, thanks, Amit. Let me get Ganesh. Ganesh, anything to add to what the other gentleman and Surbhi mentioned on the skills part, on the data architecture, challenges? Anything that you wish to comment on, add to what we already covered in the discussion?
So no, I think I'll pass that to probably somebody like folks who have more detailed insights on that. I have only high-level insights and stuff like that. So probably you should take that one.
Okay, let me get Samir back. Samir, last month I had the opportunity to visit a large auto components company in Chennai, Sundaram Clayton, and they make auto components, die castings, which are used by automotive manufacturers, and they're using a 5G network to monitor all the EMRs, autonomous mobile robots. So, and when I met the CIO, you're saying that this is the future of automation, where everything is autonomous, everything remotely controlled through 5G network. So I was amazed, a company, not very big, but still willing to invest and set up a factory completely 5G powered. So I just wanted to understand, because we also have this future of automation. So in your view, what are you seeing from a future of automation perspective, are we going to see a lot more AI that is going to be fused? So your views on this whole future of automation, Samir?
Okay, Sunil, that's a very interesting question. And I think what we are seeing is that from Omron's point of view, what we can see is AI is definitely going to play a bigger role in the manufacturing process, in the automation itself. We are already seeing that adopted. There are some use cases already existing. For example, we have PLCs which have native AI, and these can be used on machine to get doing the machine control, plus also looking at parts of the process which are not behaving in a normal fashion. So they are able to spot abnormalities, learn on the go, to spot the abnormality, to spot the evolving abnormality as the machines evolve, and bring out predictive maintenance aspects. There are other use cases, especially for learning, for training, for tuning, where there's a lot of time saving that can come in by the use of AI. Because of the use of repetitive processes can be eliminated. So definitely, yes, AI will be more embedded in the automation. But I think the way it's going to happen is not going to be some server sitting somewhere. I think it's most likely going to be native and on the edge. So that's going to be very exciting. It's already becoming very exciting. Yeah.
Okay, great. So we have 5 minutes and we can take 2 questions, Sujata. Okay, great. So what we'll do is I request whoever is asking the question to please introduce yourself and please mention to whom you're directing the question to. And my only request is to keep the question short so that we can fit in 2 questions. So I think I've seen a gentleman raising a hand there. Can we get a mic for the gentleman there?
So I'm Dinesh Rana from Modera Chemicals Private Limited. And my question is open questions. Anyone who wanted to answer the questions can do it. Now we note that in the electronic EV sector, the China produced the product so cheap, and the quality wise also very good. And even European manufacturer and the American manufacturer also have imposed the import duty on these vehicles so that their domestic manufacturer can have a business. So I wanted to know from the panel that how the China can do it. Do they have the smart factory over there, and or they have a spare capacity so that can they use the technology, and so the cost will be down and the quality also will be good. What, according to you, that China is doing in the EV sector?
See, I won't know specifically for EV setup, but I can tell you that in some other industry, in high tech, what I've seen is the Chinese manufacturers have taken giant step into smart manufacturing, and it's real. And I know many other industries where Chinese manufacturers have taken smart manufacturing very seriously, and their approach is to, just as Samir talked of, full automation, eliminating any point of defect. So automate everything, right? Even from fixing a screw of 1 mm into a mobile, they would try and do it automatically. So eliminating touch points, automating to an extent possible, and use of AI, I think it's quite pervasive, at least in some of the leading manufacturers in China.
So I'm Anant Tiwari and I'm representing Maruti Suzuki. So we are very much interested in this journey of Industry 4.0, and we are already working with the team. But what I felt, one thing that is, we are also very much unaware about, that this journey is not having any fixed path. For say, we have started collecting the data where we should do the automation part. Let's say there are a lot of things in intrusion in the boundary periphery side that is done by manual process by the guards. They do checks. There are a lot of processes where parts are checked, whether the parts are okay or NG. So we have deployed a few of the cameras which have artificial intelligence. But during the POC, there are a lot of outcomes which somehow let us not proceed further ahead with a lot of use cases, because there are a lot of false positive and false negative. And also we can't rely 100% on those data. So we somehow try to manage manual plus automated, this kind of process. So do you really think that our technology, or maybe the ecosystem in India manufacturing is that much matured enough that we can 100% rely on the maybe automation part as far as process is concerned? Yeah, please.
See, I think how you started off, this is actually the road not taken by Robert Frost. That's how we can describe the journey here. You don't know where you want to go, or the path is not clear, but you have to discover it as you move ahead. That's my take on digital transformation journey. You have shared one example, and I'll share another one, which is rather not successful. We all shared successful examples. One unsuccessful example as well. So we tried AI for the final inspection of our product. And that is where this false positives actually did not let us go through. We have gone back to the camera inspection, yes, but using the RAG segmentation method. So we are still on that methodology, experimenting with AI to get the accuracy. So though we get the model accuracy, the final accuracy in the product with the help of AI is yet to be achieved for us. So that's a part where experimentation will carry on. And okay, I have Ganesh to add on to it, so I'll just pass it.
So quickly, look, I'm sure Maruti Suzuki has tremendous amount of expertise at their disposal, so this may not be the best answer you can get. I'm sure you'll find great answers within as well. But I think if you look at just vision-based systems, like he said, we've tried vision-based inspection. We regularly use optical inspection, and we tried some AI tools there, and they were very successful. The reason why we are not able to implement them is because our clients require specific individual traceability, not because the AI didn't work. If you look at the Bombay-Pune highway that I just traveled on, all of those speed violations or traffic violations are now AI-based. It works great. I'm sure it gives some truckers a no helmet ticket sometimes. I'm sure it has errors. But all of these are, most of these, and the technology experts can comment, they are designed to be self-learning. So as the human interacts with the system, they're designed to self-correct, improve themselves, and so on and so forth. So to my mind, perhaps a more technology-focused answer is what you're looking for. But overall, I would say that the skepticism is misplaced. And perhaps what you need is a technical answer and more persistence, is perhaps how I would put it.
Yeah.
I can't say if it's a
just quick
technical
add.
answer that you need, but I think we have to also consider that technology itself is evolving. Sorry, right? We are discussing AI, but a few years ago AI was not even there. So it's coming there, and I think in Maruti Suzuki itself there are many use cases of automation that we are also involved in actually, which are very successful. So it's just a matter of time and persistence, as Ganesh mentioned,
And you should get Samir and Vishwesh's card before they leave.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. So I think this is just I think while a lot of the thing has been said, but from my experience, any kind of a vision-based systems development project is like climbing a mountain. So you never know how much more effort you really need, but the thing is you have to be patient. See, there are some level of an iterations you might have to do, either maybe a camera change, light change, or maybe some kind of a model improvement. And it will come by patience. And the more and more data basically you keep getting, the model will keep on improving, and definitely a stage will come when you will get that desired level of an accuracy. So till that time, what you should do, I think you should work more with a parallel, like the manual plus the automation.
Correct.
And keep refining the model. I think the idea is not to kind of drop it. So definitely this will be a successful.
Yeah, on a similar path we are going. Thank you.
Thank you.
You wanted to add something? Yeah, okay, okay, fine. I think we're completely run out of time, but we don't have time to take any further questions. But the speakers are all going to be available during lunch break. So if you all want to pick the brains of them, you can do that there. But it's been a fascinating discussion. A lot that we covered in this, a very, very broad topic, a lot of dimensions to cover, but we heard very clearly from some of these practitioners in terms of how technologies like AI and IoT are really creating business impact. We heard about the importance of a right data architecture, the importance of skilling. We also heard about how the MSMEs are adopting digital tech. Of course, there's a long way to go. But I think at the end of the day, what clearly emerged from the discussion is that digital technology or digital transformation is a must-have today, right? I mean, forget about growth. Even for the sustenance of the business, one has no choice but to adopt digital technologies. And I'm just hoping that 2 years or 3 years from now, when we have a similar conference like this, we'll be talking more about success stories where we are talking about adoption of Industry 4.0 much, much better than what it is today. And India is really slowly progressing towards the path of Industry 5.0, which is going to be centered around 3 important pillars: sustainability, human centricity, and resilience. And that's what the Indian manufacturers need. On that note, I would like to end this panel discussion and hand it back to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to the wonderful panel on the varied insights on this subject. I'd now like to invite on stage Mr. Bibor Srivastav, Managing Director Events, ITP Media, and Ms. Sujata Vishnuraj, Editor Manufacturing Today, to please join us on stage to felicitate the wonderful panelists on stage. We'd like to begin with Mr. Sunil David, ladies and gentlemen. I think the claps can go on for the entire panel. Thank you to the wonderful audience. Thank you.